Last week, people from across the country gathered in Green Bay, Wisconsin to honor the life of Ernie Stevens Jr. For more than 20 years, he led the Indian Gaming Association at a time of unprecedented growth. One of the most remarkable stories in the 20th century is the rise of American Indian tribal enterprise gaming. During the late 1970s, tribes in Florida and California opened high-stakes bingo parlors. It was an immediate attraction for a substantial number of players, mostly non-Indians from cities where gambling was illegal. Then, in 1987, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Cabazon Band of Mission Indians, saying that states had no power to regulate tribal gaming. The decision affirmed what tribes already believed to be so about the nature of their tribal sovereignty, and it launched a new industry. Gaming went from a business that brought in a few $1 million to a $44 billion a year industry, employing more than 400,000 people across the country. And get this, the total of commercial gaming in this country is $66.6 billion a year. Tribal enterprise gaming, Indian gaming, is more than 40% of the total market and the single largest segment. Last week, people from across the country gathered in Green Bay, Wisconsin to honor the life of Ernie Stevens Jr. For more than 20 years, he led the Indian Gaming Association at a time of unprecedented growth. He died September 26 and was 66 years old. So many tributes. I asked Victor Rocha, a longtime friend of Ernie, about his legacy.
Ernie was working, and that's what old warriors do, is we work until we can't anymore. And Ernie was a great example of, there was no, he was telling me, he wanted to run one more time, he wanted to go one more time, but he told me that 2 years before that and 2 years before that. So he was, this is what he intended to do. He always he didn't plan to stop until, this happened. So, he was a special man. It takes a special man to do what he did, to jump in a car and drive hundreds of thousands of miles and fly millions and millions of miles to be places where people need him, and that was his role, and he knew it and he accepted it. And I was talking to his family the other day, and I was like, that couldn't have been easy for you to sacrifice your father all this time. They he would come to a football game and he would leave at halftime, and I think we all seen Ernie. I'll be done as soon as I'm done with this. As soon as I'm done with dinner, I gotta go. I gotta drive to another reservation. So, he was always on the road, always moving to the next always moving to the next event, and not because he wanted to, but because he needed to. He was wanted to be there, and actually I think he wanted to be there too.
I had a special relationship with Ernie. He would schedule phone calls where we would talk about his father, Ernie Stevens Sr., a man I was lucky enough to know as a young person. Stevens was part of the new team running the Bureau of Indian Affairs during the Nixon administration. It was a remarkable time in history. In 1970, Richard Nixon sent a message to Congress that affirmed tribal self-determination. Leaders, like the elder Stevens, were determined to make that so. This was disruption at its finest in an agency that still had a lot of bureaucrats who had a colonial mindset. Ernie, the son, like his father, made tribal sovereignty his life's work. One part of that story is about representation, and it was a conversation that Ernie and I had on several occasions. Remember the fact that Indian gaming is the biggest part of casino operations in America. So I asked Ernie, why are there no Native Americans on any of the gambling company boards of directors? Ernie told me this in an interview for ICT in December of 2022.
I think the boardroom has a lot of energy and a lot of influence. And to me, it's real simple math. And the problem is people don't want to say it. It's so simple that they don't want to say it, and they don't want to be able to acknowledge our tribes as sovereigns. They want to try to avoid that, and you can't. And they haven't learned that. I should say, if they haven't learned that by now, they haven't learned anything. Yeah. So, but when you put that kind of money into something like that, that's the truth. That's the only thing I can see. But I think the bottom line here is got to do the math. The math is simple. It comes through the tribes, sovereign governments, work with us in that context, and we'll get this done. And instead, I'm kind of guy that's not so much just about money. It's about jobs, and people like to do this kind of stuff, and they're setting back the advancement of tribal gaming and gaming overall by getting caught up in these. I don't know. Are they egos? Are they territory? Are they lack of respect for tribal governments? Lack of understanding? Well, it's kind of late for that, because you might not see it in all the history books, but it's easy to do the math where I come from, So it gets a little frustrating, but hey, it's frustrating for a lot of people.
Shortly after that interview, I had a chance to ask the same thing to one of the chief executives of a gaming company. He squirmed. He said he didn't get many openings on the board, but he expected to change that in future years. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, when tribal gaming was new, tribes turned to the industry for help. A lot of the casino managers had come from Nevada, an industry they knew well. But in this era, it's often the other way around. Now the expertise is often found in tribal casinos and enterprises.
Well, maybe 30, 40 years ago, we were borrowing the professionals, are going and getting consultants and doing that stuff. We're the professionals today. Whether it's my friend Louise Cornelius, who I was talking to, her and I grew up in the gaming world. We grew up in the tribal world. We know this stuff in and out. And what we don't know, we'll find someone who does. So it's people like that have the experience and knowledge that are the ones who help us to move forward. And I've got 5 adult children that all been educated and worked their way through this life. My daughter has a doctorate degree in geography and atmospheric science. I'm not even sure what that is. My son, the vice chairman of Oneida, has an MBA. My other daughter's working on her doctorates. Everybody has education. So we're no longer the outside looking in. We're no longer going out there and telling someone to help us. We are the professionals. We've grown in this world, and we are the experts. Work with us and share the knowledge, and we'll get this figured out.
Victor Rocha is conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association and publisher of Pachanga.net. He has told me that so many people make money off of Indian gaming, and it's long past time for real representation.
Listen, the fact that there's not a Native American on the board of IGT is criminal at this point. You know what I mean? It's just, but, on the other hand, the fact that Indian country does best when we're not in the sidelines, you know what I mean? So keeping our head down, working, moving those numbers year after year, that's a strategy too,
The word legacy literally means a gift, and that gift is ahead. There will come a day when the changes that Ernie Stevens Jr. worked to make so will be so. I asked Ernie if there would be a day when the industry turned to Indian country and said, hey, you're our next CEO.
I think today is today. I think it is, because I would send any one of my adult children to any one of those areas. And my kids work in government, they work in marketing, they work in a lot of environmental science and environmental advocacy. I'd send them into any battle, anytime, any place.
Send them into battle. This is Mark Trahant and Breaking History. Be sure to share, comment, and subscribe.